The first-time Commander Elias Ward saw Queen Erindra of the Virelian Dominion. She was standing in the middle of a burning city. The sky above her world had turned violet with smoke. Human warships hung like dark thorns in orbit, and the Virelian capital, an ocean of white spires and crystal bridges, was crumbling under orbital bombardment. Elias had not come as a conqueror. He had come as part of a diplomatic escort that failed before it began. A rogue human admiral, convinced the Virelians were building weapons capable of sterilizing Earth, had launched a preemptive strike. By the time Elias's ground unit realized what was happening, peace had already been replaced by plasma and ash. He remembered the screams, high, resonant tones that vibrated in his chest. Virelians were taller than humans, their skin luminous like moonlight caught in water. Their eyes were silver and faceted, capable of seeing spectra humans could barely comprehend. To Elias, they looked like beings carved from starlight. He was not supposed to leave the extraction zone, but he did. Through collapsing archways and across a bridge that fractured beneath his boots, Elias ran toward the royal spire. His orders crackled in his earpiece, commanding him to fall back. He ripped the device out and threw it into the flames. Inside the throne chamber, the ceiling had partially collapsed. Royal guards lay scattered, their armor cracked and dimmed. At the center of the devastation stood Queen Erindra. She did not flee. Her crown, a living circlet of woven biometal, still shimmered faintly around her brow. She held no weapon. Instead, she stood before a widening breach in the wall where fire poured inward like a living creature. Their eyes met. Elias did not know why he ran toward her. Perhaps it was the defiance in her posture. Perhaps it was guilt. A second bombardment strike hit the upper spire. The chamber shook violently. A column of flame erupted between them, severing any safe path. Elias did not think. He walked into the fire. His armor ignited. Warning systems screamed as temperatures spiked beyond safety thresholds. He could feel his skin blistering beneath the suit, the acrid smell of burning insulation filling his helmet. He kept walking. He reached her as the final support beam gave way. With a roar of collapsing crystal, the roof caved in. Elias threw himself over the queen. White light swallowed them. When he awoke, it was not in a human med bay. The ceiling above him curved like the inside of a pearl shell. Soft blue bioluminescent veins pulsed gently through the walls. The air smelled faintly sweet, like crushed petals. He tried to move and groaned in pain. "You should not be conscious," a voice said. He turned his head. Queen Erindra stood beside his bed. She was taller than he remembered, nearly 7 feet, with long, silver-white hair flowing like liquid light over her shoulders. Her eyes regarded him with something between curiosity and calculation. "You are fortunate," she continued. "Few organic beings survive immersion in fusion flame." He swallowed. His throat felt raw. "You're alive." "I am." He closed his eyes briefly. "Good." There was a long silence. "You crossed the fire to reach me," she said. "Why?" Elias hesitated. He could lie, claim tactical reasoning, strategic value, political advantage. Instead, he answered truthfully, "Because no one deserves to burn alone." Something shifted in her gaze then, something subtle, almost imperceptible. The door to the chamber opened, and Virelian officials entered. Their expressions hardened at the sight of him. "He is human," one said sharply. "Yes," Erindra replied. "They destroyed half our capital." "Yes. And yet he lives." Erindra's voice did not rise, but the room quieted instantly. "He walked into fire for me. He will be treated as my honored guest." Guest. Not prisoner. Elias exhaled slowly. He had survived the flames. He did not yet realize he had stepped into something far more dangerous. The marriage decree. The war ended 3 months later. Human leadership arrested the rogue admiral. Reparations were negotiated. Aid flowed toward Virelia to rebuild what had been shattered. Elias remained. Officially, he was a liaison officer assigned to coordinate reconstruction efforts. Unofficially, he was the human who had shielded the queen. Whispers followed him everywhere in the capital. Some Virelians regarded him with suspicion, others with awe. Children sometimes reached out to touch the scarred plating of his replacement arm, a prosthetic grown from hybrid human Virelian biotech after his original had been lost in the fire. Queen Erindra summoned him frequently. Their meetings began as strategy sessions, reconstruction plans, security concerns, cultural misunderstandings between their species. But gradually the tone shifted. She asked about Earth's oceans. He asked about Virelian sky whales that drifted through the upper atmosphere. She told him about her ascension ceremony when she bonded with the living crown. He told her about his childhood on a farm where stars were the only light pollution couldn't erase. He found himself looking forward to those conversations more than he should have. One evening, as twin moons rose beyond the palace balcony, she stood beside him in silence. "You altered the trajectory of 2 civilizations," she said. "I disobeyed orders. You chose compassion over command." She turned to him. "That is rarer." He studied her profile in the moonlight. "Why did you stay in the throne room that day?" "Because a queen does not abandon her people in their final moments." He gave a soft, humorless laugh. "Guess we're both terrible at self-preservation." She almost smiled. Then came the decree. The royal conclave assembled in full ceremonial regalia. Advisors, military leaders, scientists. Every influential mind in the Dominion stood within the Hall of Resonance. Elias had been invited as an observer. He did not expect his name to be spoken. "Our world stands at a precipice," Erindra declared, her voice echoing through crystalline arches. "The flames of conflict have shown us both our vulnerability and our strength." She gestured toward Elias. This human walked through fire to save his former enemy. That act has become a symbol among our people. Murmurs rippled through the hall. "In ancient cycles," she continued, "when our world faced extinction, alliances were forged not merely through treaty, but through bond." Elias felt a tightening in his chest. The Dominion requires unity, stability, a bridge that cannot be severed by politics. She lifted her chin. "I will take Commander Elias Ward as my royal consort." The hall erupted. Protests, outrage, shock. Elias stared at her, certain he had misheard. A Virelian general stepped forward. "Your Majesty, he is alien, biologically incompatible, culturally unaligned. His species attacked us." "And yet he saved me," she replied calmly. "That was one act. It was a defining act." The debate raged for hours. Elias remained frozen. Finally, the conclave fell silent. Erindra spoke one final time. "I do not demand this union for romance. I demand it for survival. The humans must see that we do not view them solely as enemies. And my people must see that courage transcends species." Her silver gaze found Elias. "This is my will." Later, in a private chamber, Elias confronted her. "You didn't ask me," he said. "I am asking you now," she replied. That didn't look like asking. She stepped closer. "If you refuse, I will withdraw the decree." He blinked. "You would?" "Yes." "Even after that spectacle?" "I will not chain you." Silence stretched between them. "You don't need a marriage to secure peace," he said quietly. "No," she agreed. "But symbols matter. Stories matter. You are already a legend among my people. And what about among yours? She asked. He thought of Earth, of politicians dissecting his every move, of media calling him either traitor or hero. They'll say I've been seduced by an alien queen. Her eyes flickered faintly with amusement. Have you? He exhaled slowly. This isn't just politics, is it?
No, she said.
There it was. Vulnerability. He studied her face, the queen who had refused to abandon her throne, who had watched her city burn without flinching. You're asking me to walk into fire again, he murmured. Yes. And this time it won't just burn me. No, he closed his eyes briefly. When would it happen? Her voice softened. At the Festival of Renewal. 1 month from now. He nodded once. Then I'll do it. The trial by flame, the Festival of Renewal, was an ancient rite predating Viralian spaceflight. At its center stood a ceremonial chamber encircled by controlled plasma arcs, symbolic echoes of the star that sustained their world. Traditionally, royal consorts underwent the trial by flame to prove devotion and resilience. No human had ever attempted it. Human officials protested immediately. It's barbaric, one ambassador argued via holoprojection. You nearly died in actual fire once. Elias met his reflection in the projection's glassy surface. I survived, he replied. This is political theater. Maybe, he said, but it's necessary. In truth, fear coiled in his gut. The previous fire had been chaos. This would be deliberate. On the night of the ceremony, tens of thousands gathered in the capital's restored central plaza. Viralian architecture shimmered anew, scars of war replaced with luminous growth. Elias stood at the edge of the ceremonial chamber, wearing armor redesigned for the trial, sleeker, interwoven with Viralian biometal. Across from him stood Arindra in full regalia, her living crown radiant. You may still withdraw, she said quietly. He gave a faint smile. You first. A soft exhale, almost laughter. The conclave initiated the rite. Plasma arcs flared to life, forming a corridor of living flame between them. The objective was simple. Walk through. Meet in the center. Elias stepped forward. Heat slammed into him instantly. Not destructive like the bombardment fire, but intense, deliberate. His armor systems strained. Warning lights pulsed across his vision. He kept moving. Halfway through, the flames intensified unexpectedly. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Elias stumbled. His prosthetic arm flickered as power levels spiked beyond tolerance. Something was wrong. Through the haze, he saw movement in the upper balconies, an extremist faction opposed to the marriage. Sabotage. The plasma arcs surged violently. He heard Arindra shout his name. For a fraction of a second, doubt pierced him. He could retreat. He could end this madness. Instead, he did what he had done in the throne room months ago. He walked forward. His armor began to melt at the edges. Pain screamed through his nerves. The world narrowed to fire and willpower. Then, through the blaze, a figure moved toward him. Arindra. She had entered the corridor. Gasps echoed across the plaza. She should not have. The trial required him to reach her. But she was walking into the same inferno. They met at the center. Flames spiraled around them like a living storm. You stubborn human, she said, her voice strained. You're worse, he rasped. Together, they took the final steps. As they exited the corridor, security forces subdued the saboteurs. The plasma arcs died down. Elias collapsed to one knee. Arindra caught him. The plaza was silent. Then, slowly, thousands of Viralians lowered themselves in unified bow. Not to her.
To them.
Ending. A union forged. Elias recovered in the same pearl-curved chamber where he had first awakened months ago. This time he was not a guest. He was consort. The saboteurs were tried and sentenced. Opposition did not vanish overnight, but something fundamental had shifted. They had both walked into fire. The symbolism was undeniable. When the marriage ceremony took place 3 days later, it was less spectacle and more solemn vow. No plasma corridors. No political speeches. Just two beings from different stars standing before their people. I once believed strength meant standing alone, Arindra said during the ceremony. I was wrong. Elias took her hand, long, luminous fingers interlacing with his scarred human ones. I once believed duty meant obedience, he replied. I was wrong about that too. Their vows were simple. Protection, honesty, shared burden. As the living crown extended delicate tendrils of light, it brushed briefly against Elias's temple. Not bonding, but acknowledging. The crowd exhaled collectively. Later, on the palace balcony overlooking a city reborn, Elias leaned against the railing. Regret? She asked. He considered it. I lost my old life, he admitted. Yes. But I gained something bigger. She stepped beside him. You are aware that future historians will dramatize this excessively. He smiled. Let them. A pause. Was it worth it? She asked quietly. He looked out over the glowing skyline, then at her. I walked into fire once, because no one deserves to burn alone. He reached for her hand again. This time, I walked in, because I didn't want you to. Her silver eyes softened. Then we will ensure, she said, that neither our worlds face such flames again. In orbit above Virelia, human and Virelian ships now drifted side by side, not in hostility, but in shared patrol. Trade routes opened. Scientific collaborations flourished. Cultural exchange programs began. Awkward and hopeful. Not all problems vanished. Prejudice lingered. Political tension flared occasionally, but the image endured. A human soldier walking into fire, an alien queen meeting him halfway, and a marriage not born of conquest but of choice. Years later, when children, human and Virelian alike, ask how peace truly began, the story told was not of treaties or negotiations. It was of flame, of courage, of two leaders who refused to let fear define their future. And in the quiet moments, when the palace lights dimmed and the twin moons cast silver shadows across their chamber, Elias would sometimes wake from dreams of burning spires. Each time, he would feel a cool, luminous hand entwined with his. A reminder. He had walked into fire for her, and she had walked into it with him. Together, they had transformed destruction into unity, not by decree alone, but by the simple, defiant act of stepping forward when retreat would have been easier. And in that choice, an empire was reborn.